All right, what is up, guys? Welcome back. It's been a minute. Episode 11 of the New Guys podcast. We just got three of us here today. Fortunately, Graham's taking a leave of absence for the immediate future, so you won't see him around. But you still got me, Anthony, Pat. We've been here for a while. We're still
We
here.
have been here for a while.
We're still here. Just regular shit. Be sure to follow all of us. We put all of our handles in the description of the YouTube video and the Spotify podcast, and then follow Ride the Wave. You guys probably already following Ride the Wave, but we always like to mention it. So jumping right into it, just coming off of probably the biggest Patriots game of the season and one of the biggest regular season games in like recent history. Because think about it, I mean, you lose this game, that's the season theoretically, and they came up and beat them up and look good doing it. The standout guy that's coming from this game has got to be Damian Harris. We knew it was going to be the run-heavy game. The weather was predicted to be horrible, rain. Anyone who lives in New England, knew it was coming, or even Anthony, who knew it was coming from New York. Yeah. And we knew it was going to be ground and pound, but God, I don't think anyone predicted Harris getting, 123, 19 carries. He's looking astounding, and he was someone that I think a lot of us wanted to see last year, but never really got anything going. I don't think received a snap in the regular season. But with Michelle going on IR, he's got the opportunity. He looked good. You guys think where are you guys ranking him in the running backs in the NFL right now? There's a lot of people thinking he's like a top half running back now. I mean, I think we need to slow a roll a little bit, but he's a mini Derrick Henry. He has the same just ground and pound right through the line. None of this elusive, crap. But where do you guys rank him? I mean, do you think he can be like a top 10 back in a couple of seasons?
Yeah, I'm comfortable saying that. I think right now he's definitely got the talent. He's shown it week after week, his ability to hit the hole, his ability to, create room against defenders and just get around them, power through them. Something you look for in a feature back, definitely. Something the Patriots really haven't had since the early 2000s. So definitely, I don't think right now he'd be considered top 10. He'd probably be in the top half just off of how he's played. He has a couple 100-yard games this year. But he's on that track. I mean, you can see, I think in a lot of young running backs, you can tell early on whether or not they're going to be great. And I think he definitely has the flashes that you look for in a guy like that.
Yeah, Pat really hit the nail on the head. He's been really consistent with I think he's had 100 plus yard games so far. So
close that's to pretty. I think it's 2, and he had like an 85 or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Much.
Or something like maybe like 100 yards combined type of deal, but still, it's pretty promising what this young guy can do. And this is someone who I haven't really been all that high on. It's like, all right, it's another Sony Michel type of thing, because I've been like, just be done with Sony Michel. The experiment's over. Like this guy, he'll have like a one flashy game where he'll run for like 90 yards, and then he'll do nothing the next week. Like he'll be absolutely slowed down. But Henry, I almost said Derrick Henry. I'm really getting over my head here. Damian Harris, his ability to hit the hole like that and just run after he would hit the hole and just be, it's crazy the way I'm fucking losing
his after contact yards is probably
that's
up there.
You just put the words in my mouth. The way he's able to just take a hit and just keep going, run for another 10-15 yards, that's big. Like when it comes on third down and like a 3rd and 2, when you can pick up like 15-20 yards, that's huge. Baltimore ended up slowing them down, because I honestly think this win came because of shitty Baltimore play calling on the defense. They should have been bringing the blitz the whole game. And you saw at the end there, when they really started bringing the blitz, New England could get nothing going. Granted, the rain really started to pick up. But, yeah, I think Harris is going to be really promising in New England for the next few years.
And Pat mentioned it. There's a little bit of a worry for me because Pat touched on it. He is the bell cow, but he doesn't get a lot in the passing game, if any. I think he's probably gotten 2 or 3 receptions, which is a little worrisome because the way the Patriots have always been, it's like you've got, look at our running backs, they got to be able to pass catch, and if they can't, James White's going to come in and fill in for a little bit.
That's the way the NFL is going too.
Yeah, and I think, if you look at the top running backs, like guys like Derrick Henry, they can't pass catch, but they're so just powerful. They give them 20 carries, 25 carries a game. So if Harris can become that, great, but his lack of pass catching ability is a little like worrisome. They don't really seem to trust him there, but which kind of reveals what we're gonna do. If you see Harris out there, it's. I mean, you could play action it, but generally you're thinking run. But to kind of zoom back out to the game as a whole, I think the defense is still a huge question mark. We didn't look great at times, but when it mattered, especially on their last hurrah, the Ravens last hurrah. Of course, the rain helped. That was like a monsoon.
Literally the last 30 seconds. I thought rain gate was going to happen or something like that.
Yeah, it was insane. But you just in general, they looked shaky at the beginning. But I think the turning point for the defense was JC's interception right at the end of the half. It was kind of like the Ravens could have driven and got that field goal. I think it would have been a tie game. It would have been a whole new game. But that momentum was kept into the second half, and they didn't really look back. So, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on the defense? I think still without Stephon Gilmore, it doesn't look horrible, but I still don't have a lot of trust in it. They didn't look at all like they did last year, which I don't necessarily expect. But when you're talking about having to face like the Chiefs, maybe if you get to the wild card, you're going to have to face the Chiefs early on. You're going to have to maybe face the Steelers, these prolific offenses. Lamar hasn't looked that good this year. So to say, well, it was the Ravens, I mean, their offense doesn't look that good. So when they face a tough offense, I mean, I don't personally have much trust in them. I don't know if you guys feel any different.
I mean, Anthony, I want to shout him out real quick. You were right about Lamar at the beginning of the season. He hasn't been anything what he was last year at all.
Number 7, I told all of you.
Not even close. He really doesn't even look that good at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you definitely have to factor in the weather. And playing at home, I think, was an advantage even without no fans, or with no fans rather. Definitely a great moral victory anyway. After you've had some tough losses earlier in the year to get teams like Seattle and Buffalo, teams who are really good among that upper echelon of teams, but teams that you've lost to. So it definitely shows you that you can compete with the heavyweight teams, even, a team like Baltimore, who isn't as good as they were last year, but still among the elite teams, especially defensively. If they can kind of take this and move towards, getting some momentum going, you maybe look at a team that could finish with like a 10-6 or 9-7 record. But, like Jordan said, there are some tougher teams that when you face them, you just know you're really not going to match up. The Steelers being among them. If you get into the playoffs, the Chiefs, it'll be tough. There are those teams that your offense really can't make up that much for your defense, which hasn't been on the level that it has been the past couple of years. But definitely really impressive for them to even come out and compete with the Ravens, let alone beat them.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, speaking of the defense, I think this all comes down to play calling. With one of the top secondaries in the league, with Stephon Gilmore when he comes back, or both McCourty, shall I say, J.C. Jackson, who has really filled in that cornerback number 1 role.
Mr. INT.
Yeah.
You got to start running a lot more blitzes, especially against a guy like Lamar Jackson. If you can make him run around and do something stupid, I trust the secondary 100%, especially with the Ravens, who they have decent weapons, guys like Mark Andrews, Willie Snead, but I don't think they really match up as well with our secondary. So I think if we can run a lot more blitzes with Winovich and keep Bentley on a spy, because I think he's one of the faster guys, or Josh Uche, who is one of the faster guys that can keep up with Lamar. You put them on a spy and you just have them watch him, make him run around. I think that could really help, especially because, I mean, you're not going to be playing Lamar Jackson every game. This is definitely something we can use against Arizona when we play them down the line against Kyler Murray. And I want to talk about the offense for a little bit. For the rest of the year, I think this is going to be a very run-heavy offense, as we know, with very selective passing. And when you talk about Damian Harris in the passing game, it doesn't really worry me all that much because you're only going to be passing every so often maybe on a play action with him on the field over the middle to a guy like Jacoby Myers, who had a pretty solid game on Sunday. So last time we said the offense finally has it figured out, like earlier in the year, they really didn't. That's when they went on a decline. So hopefully they can keep this mojo going into next week against Houston.
Yeah. I don't know. I agree with you that the offense looked a lot better. I mean, we already talked about Damian Harris, but to me, Cam Newton still didn't look great. And again, it could have been the weather. I mean,
because of the selective passing. Because he didn't throw all that much if you think about it.
He was 13 for 17, which, I mean, all things considered is pretty
Yeah,
pretty good. But
I think more of his pocket presence worries me. He seems to be like a little bit like
jittery.
yeah, in the
Yeah.
pocket, and it's kind of like whenever there's pressure, I'm expecting him to make a bad throw, which maybe we're just used to Brady for the past 20 years.
Because
But
I remember like the first 3 weeks of the season when the pressure would come, Cam would just step up in the pocket and then he'd make the play. I'm like, oh, this is something that Brady could never do, especially in the later years. And now that I'm starting to see him kind of freak out in the pocket, that's a little worrisome.
Yeah, he doesn't seem as mobile as he was, 5-6 weeks ago. Which, I mean, maybe there's I don't know if there's something behind that, if there's an underlying injury, or maybe it was something McDaniel said. You can't be scrambling, so much, and I don't know. But I'd like to see him move a little bit more, just because the O-line, like, I don't know, it's so good. If you look at it on paper, our O-line is probably one of the best in the league. But for some reason, there are multiple times in the game where our tackles just get obliterated, and it's like, they'll send 4 and they'll get through like it's nothing. And I felt
we
like
had a couple of guys moving around. I forget who one of our guards was moved to tackle. And if you're not like a football guy like I am, that's a very hard transition to make.
Yeah.
So you can't blame him there.
But I don't think the offensive line has looked overly confident at all this season. So I don't know if it's just this game.
Maybe it's a coaching thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think overall the offense looked good. I mean, in this type of game, you knew it was going to be a gritty game, and both sides of the ball looked good. It's even bigger because we now have the tiebreaker over the Ravens, and this is the only game we play against them. So in a race for the playoff spot, we see so many times where teams finish at the same record, and with how the Ravens are looking, I mean, is it out of the question for them to lose a couple more, to go lose their next 3 out of 5? I don't think so.
Tennessee next week.
Yeah, Tennessee next week. I think they got the Steelers again later on in the season. I mean,
Steelers after that.
Tennessee and then Pittsburgh.
They got the Browns.
I mean, those are 3 games right there. They could
drop 3 games.
Yeah, without a doubt. So that tiebreaker is huge. If we got nothing else on the Patriots here, we're gonna hop back to them at the end, talk about like what needs to happen. But we can hop to one of the other games that happened last week. Cardinals Bills, maybe a candidate for game of the year so far. You knew it was going to be a high scoring, game. I think at halftime it really was. I think it was something like 13-10 or something. It wasn't really a high scoring game, but they turned it on, and it ended, obviously with Kyler Murray just heaving, 50+ yard pass to Hopkins, triple coverage, and he just went up and grabbed it. That was insane. I mean, the big takeaway for me, though, is in terms of the Patriots, is that the Bills, a big loss. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to collapse and lose the division, but if you're really looking at every outlet for the Patriots to get in, every loss that the Bills have gets you one game closer to maybe tying them up in the division, and it makes that game later on in the season even more important. So my question to you guys is this. So maybe I might get some hate for this, but do you think the Bills are fakers? Do you think they're pretenders, or are they actually contenders?
No.
Because I know that Spike and a couple others in our chat have said it, that the Bills don't impress them, and that the Cardinals expose them, and the Cardinals show that they're real contenders. So what do you guys think? Do you think the Bills have a shot at getting to the Super Bowl this year?
I'd say, I think it's stupid to call them pretenders based off of the fact they lost on a Hail Mary. Yeah,
I agree.
Come on, it's one play. If it went the other way, you could be saying, oh, the Cardinals are pretenders, they lost to the Bills. So I think to nitpick like that's kind of dumb. You could do that for a lot of other teams, whatever the situation is. But I think it's just it's a tough loss for the Bills, tough pill to swallow. What'd you say, Anthony?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'll keep going. I'll look back on that later. I think it's just, it's a tough loss for the Bills. It happens. It happens, even to the best of teams. I think it could be huge for us down the line. It's huge for the Cardinals in trying to win that division and lock up a higher seed over in the NFC. But the Bills are legit. They beat us. I think they're probably one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the AFC. No doubt. So I wouldn't say they're pretenders. It's just bad luck.
Yeah, not at all. I don't think they're pretenders at all, because how often does that happen? Like a freak play like that, DeAndre Hopkins in triple coverage to win the game at the buzzer. Like, come on. But if I'm a Bill, this isn't a loss for either team. Yes, it's a loss. It's a win on paper for the Cardinals and a loss on paper for the Bills. But that last touchdown at the end, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, that's legit. Like that's a connection you're gonna have for years to come. And if I'm a Bills fan, like you're not playing DeAndre Hopkins every game. 99.9% of the time, that's gonna win you the game. So if I'm a Bills fan, I'm like, all right, I'm not looking at that last catch. I'm looking at that second to last catch with Stephon Diggs. And
Right, that was with like 30 seconds left. Like that would win you the game.
Yeah, 99.9% of the time that wins you the game.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a Bills fan, I'm going to be optimistic about this one. But yeah, we're seeing Russell Wilson having a few bad weeks, and we're going to get to that game later. But we saw Josh Allen do this earlier in the year, and he's starting to pick back up. What the fuck am I trying to say?
Off.
Pick up where he left off earlier in the year. So So neither of the two, Josh Allen nor Russell Wilson, are going to be in the decline for that long. Russ is going to pick it back up just like Allen did. I kind of digressed a little bit there, but.
So I think the main question with the Bill, I agree with you guys saying they aren't pretenders because for the same reasons you guys said. One, it's the Cardinals. I mean, this is one of the best teams in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you lost on a Hail Mary that if they did it 10 more times probably wouldn't be caught. So it's like it's not like you got blown out or anything. And one of the main reasons is the question at the beginning of the season when the Bills, we're scoring a lot but not stopping any offenses. It was like parallel to last year where the Bills defense was the best in the league, arguably the best in the league behind us. And, the offense didn't have to score that much because the Bills were just able to stop them. Trey White and, the crew were just able to stop, teams. But when you came into this year and you saw week 1, 2, 3, Allen was like scoring a lot. You're like, well, can they keep it up? Because this defense looks really bad. And so far, we're 10 weeks in, they've kept it up. So I don't think there's any question that the Bills' defense isn't great, but their offense is miles better than last year. So staying on this game, though, flipping to the other side, Kyler Murray has looked outstanding all season, mirroring Lamar's MVP season from last year.
Carrying my fantasy team on his back.
Carrying him to the playoffs, maybe.
We
don't want to spoil it. But mirroring Lamar's MVP season from last year, that kind of brings me to my question. Do you guys think Kyler is in the lead for MVP right now? There's a little bit of it's kind of tough right now because, like Anthony said, Russ has slipped into a bit of a decline. I wouldn't even call it a decline, but a slump. And so maybe your opinions skewed one way or the other. But do you guys think he has the lead right now? If he keeps up what he's doing, is there really anyone that you'd put over him?
I mean, honestly, there really isn't, or really aren't that many people you could put over him. I think passing, I'm trying to pull up some stats right now. It's not going too well. But he's had a very good year passing the football. Pretty efficient overall, very similar to Lamar Jackson last year. And rushing, he's, I think, like top 3 in rushing touchdowns in the whole league. And in rushing yards, I think he might also be top 10. So the last time we saw a guy have that kind of success was Lamar Jackson last year. And I'd say outside of Mahomes right now, Mahomes might be the front runner just because of wins, to be honest. Big Ben's also having a pretty good year for an undefeated Steelers team. But Murray is definitely, I think, top 3 right now because Wilson has dropped off the past 3-4 weeks without a doubt. He's been throwing a lot more picks. He hasn't been nearly as careful with the football. Rodgers, I think, they're not going to finish with a good enough record. Maybe they will, but Rodgers just hasn't been wowing people like he was the first couple of weeks anyway. Brady, I think, just won't really string anything together well enough to be able to put himself in the front of that conversation. I think Murray's just constantly wowed people. He's just gotten better as the season's progressed. He's won all the big games he's had to. He's beat Buffalo. He's beat Seattle. We'll see next week when they play Seattle again. If he can win that game, that'll definitely catapult him over Russell Wilson, no doubt. So, this is a guy who we see a trend with these second-year quarterbacks who catapult themselves into the MVP conversation. Murray's done that, and there's no doubt about it that he's here and he's here to stay, and he's going for the MVP.
Now, if Kyler Murray does win MVP, would he be the first to win Rookie of the Year and then MVP in subsequent seasons?
I feel like there has
That's a
to
good
have been
question.
someone.
Like, I feel like he'd be the first.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta have been a. I'm thinking maybe it had to have been a quarterback if someone else had done it, but maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to look up.
But while Jordan's doing that, I've been saying this since I started here in March. I'm gonna stick to my guns. Russell Wilson's gonna win MVP. He's gonna come out of the slump against Arizona, and I think he's gonna have a fantastic game, and remind everyone that he's still here. Russ is still my MVP.
I think again, I think that's fine. I mean, it's so tough because it's so like the recency bias is like so heavy when you're determining MVP, at least like this in this point in the season. And so like I think choosing Russ is fine, even though he's had a bit of a decline. If he can pick it back up, he started off so hot that he kind of has room to like slow down a bit. But I think I got to stick with Pat. I mean, the only person I could see above him right now is Mahomes. But if you're looking at just numbers, I mean, there really isn't anyone that I think you could stick above him at all. And if he can keep it up, like Pat said against the Seahawks next week, that's a huge game. And we'll see if they can actually beat him again, I should say. But yeah, I think I would probably have him at 1 at this point in the season. We can jump over. I cannot find anything on Rookie of the Year MVP. Probably take a little bit more.
No, I was looking at the Rookie of the Year, so I don't think there's been anybody that's won Rookie of the Year than MVP. Because I was looking at quarterbacks and like it's like Big Ben and like Dak Prescott and Sam Bradford, like those guys that win MVP. So.
Jim Brown in 57 won Rookie of the Year and MVP. So, I mean, I guess that counts.
It was built different.
It wasn't back to back, but it was the same year. But
yeah, it was built different.
Yeah, there's probably different. There's probably some other guys that have came close at least. But let's jump over to the Seahawks Rams game from this past week. Speaking of Russ, he has looked slow.
You could say he's looked rusty. Somebody cracked down.
Anthony gives him the what do you call it, symbols?
That's what it's called.
But I mean, he's looked a little bit slow these past couple weeks. He's made some bad decisions in terms of passing the ball. It's not even just hesitance. He's almost being, not really thinking when he's throwing the ball, and he's thrown a couple picks. I don't know how many picks he has in the last couple weeks, but it's quite a bit. And I think, look, I mean, there's still room for him to come back and finish off strong, but at the beginning of the year, probably a couple weeks ago, or maybe even a month ago, we said the Seahawks defense is so bad that if the Seahawks offense doesn't keep up every single week, they're going to struggle. Can Russ continue what he's doing for the entire season? And we've seen that Russ slowing down a little bit, even when he didn't slow down against the Cardinals, and he just made a poor decision with a couple minutes left in overtime, they still lost. And it just, like we said it back then, Russ has to play perfect for the Seahawks to really have a shot at any decent team like the Rams. And we saw that Jared Goff didn't throw for any touchdowns, but threw for 300 plus. They had, I think, 3 touchdowns that game on the ground.
On the ground, yeah.
Seattle's defense we've said it for a couple weeks now, that if they aren't there, therefore Russ has to make up. And when Russ isn't there, they don't look like a great team. So I don't know. Where do you guys think Seattle goes from here? They obviously are still in the division hunt, obviously, but we mentioned the Cardinals next week. I mean, that's a make or break game. If they lose that one, you're talking about maybe even playoff hopes dwindling. Especially with how strong the NFC is.
I think they slip out of the playoffs.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think they're obviously not the top dog in the NFC yet or anymore, I don't think.
No.
But do you think they still make the playoffs?
I think they should, but it all hinges on how Wilson plays and whether or not he can account for this or make up for this defense. This defense has really just regressed really as the season has gone on. I mean, you were going against Jared Goff. He didn't even throw a touchdown yet. It's still lost by 7 points. If Wilson has one of those bad days, in the first round of the playoffs, you're getting bounced. Yeah. And this is a team that through 5 weeks, people were crowning them as the best team in the league, including myself, including many of us on this podcast. But now they're sitting third place in their division. They're behind the Rams and the Cardinals. Yeah. They lose a game to the Rams every single year. Even when they were terrible, they would still do it. It's just a thing, I think. But I mean, this is a serious thing that could happen. I kind of want to look at the Seahawks schedule real quick just to see who else they're facing. They're facing the Cardinals next week. They got the 49ers and Rams one more time. If the Rams and Cardinals can win out most of their games and capture those two division games against the Seahawks are sitting at like a very low playoff seed, like in the 5 to 7 range. So they're definitely in danger. I think it's almost time to hit the panic button over there. You didn't really make a move to improve your defense. You've had some injuries, sure, but you lost to a Rams team that's really kind of preyed on below 500 teams all year, and now you're facing a Cardinals team that's red hot coming off this huge win against Buffalo. So I would look out if I'm in Seattle. You definitely got some stuff to worry about over there. I think Pete Carroll's really got to figure something out.
The Seahawks season is going to come down to these last few weeks of the regular season, because if they get in the playoffs, they win the division. I think it's open season in the NFC. I wrote an article for my school newspaper about how wide open the NFC is, because it seems like everyone's beating everyone. You got Green Bay beating New Orleans. You got freaking Tampa Bay beats Green Bay, but New Orleans beat Tampa Bay twice. It's just absolute craziness down there. It's really hard to call who's going to win it.
Mhm.
And I want to stick to my guns and say I think Seattle's still a top contender. But like I said, it's going to come down to this Thursday night and these next few weeks, because that's what's really going to dictate the NFC playoff picture. And I think it's all in Seattle, just because I feel like the top contenders don't really have a legit defense. Like every game they're in is a shootout, and because of their offense, like you think about it, the Saints, the Packers, the Bucks, there are these high-powered offenses that can't be backed up by a good defense. And if the Rams can go ahead and get a top seed, I think they have the best defense in the playoff picture in the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of a dynamic offense, depending on how Jared Goff plays, of course, it could be really, really scary. So I'm obviously hitting the panic button if I'm Seattle, but I'm not going to panic until after this week. If you get a win against the Cardinals, hey, you're chilling, you're fine. You don't got to play the Cardinals no more. I think it comes down to if it came down to a tiebreaker, they get the tiebreaker over the Cardinals just because they won the most recent match, some shit like that. I don't know, but I'm not counting Seattle out yet, just because the NFC is so wide open and they know what's at stake.
I like what you said about the Rams, Anthony, because I remember before the season we were all shitting on them for their defense. We thought it was going to be bad outside of Donald and Ramsey. And it's been one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. Not many offensive or defensives have been able to shut down the Seahawks and hold Wilson to 0 passing touchdowns, but they did. I think they're the first people to do it. So I think McVay definitely deserves credit for making the most out of what he has over there. After a bad year last year, he's really elevated them back to playoff contender status.
Yeah. I mean, back to what Anthony said about the NFC being wide open. I mean, it's not a good thing for the Seahawks because, if they finish, towards the wild card spot, as they get lower and lower, you have a higher chance of maybe playing the Bucks earlier on in the playoffs. And you talk about Seattle's lack of defense mixed with their, struggles on offense.
Mixed with Tampa Bay's lack of defense.
Yeah.
Every game in the NFC is going to be a shootout. Get your popcorn ready. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, it really is wide open. Anthony summed it up pretty well. I mean, I don't think I could pick a top team in the NFC right now. Like the Saints obviously are going to slip because of Breeze. But then you have the Cardinals, you have the Bucks. I mean, there are still a lot of teams up there that, could take it. So we'll see, obviously, in the coming weeks. We just want to wrap up this past week with the Thursday night game that happened, Colts and Titans. Another big game. We just usually pick three or four to highlight. This was probably a big surprise to a lot of people. We've doubted the Colts. More so, Graham has doubted the Colts all season. Philip Rivers. But they had a massive upset on Thursday night against the Titans, even though their record, still showed that, that they were still a decent opponent. They were kind of in that pretender group, but I don't know anymore. They shut down Tannehill, 147 yards and 1 touchdown. I don't know. Do you guys put the Colts over the Titans now in terms of AFC rankings?
The Colts, I think, they're just a team powered by their defense, which is also kind of like the Rams. They've been, top 3, top 5 this whole year, when I don't really think anybody expected them to be that good. this Colts team, I think, has really come down to whether or not Phillip Rivers loses them the game. And recently, he's just been able to do what he has to do to get him to win.
Yeah.
The Titans really have looked weak since, the past couple of weeks. I think they're sitting at 6-3 now, maybe.
Yeah, 6-3.
They don't look as strong as they used to. And this is a team that usually gets better as the season goes on. They've kind of been getting worse as we've progressed through the week here to the mid-season point. The Colts, I think, are definitely a team that a lot of people don't want to play because they just have a great O-line. They've got some offensive weapons. But even if their offense isn't clicking, their defense is one of the best playmaking defenses in the entire league. So I'd be pretty scared to play them personally. Right now, I'd put them over the Titans. I think you kind of have to with how they've played recently. And they have upset potential for pretty much every team in the league. I think that they almost came close to beating the Ravens a few weeks ago. I'd say right now you should project them to win the AFC South because the Titans, I think, are just looking weak and the Colts have just kept getting better.
Yeah, the next slate of games for the Titans is tough. You got Baltimore, and then you got Indianapolis the following week, and then Cleveland, which is really up in the air with how Cleveland plays. But I like Pat's illusion there. You really can say that the Colts are the Rams of the AFC. They're carried by their defense, and the weight lies on how their quarterback performs. With a great amount of weapons around him, I think Rivers has a little bit more weapons at running back, as Goff has a little more weapons at wide receiver.
It'd be nice if we could use Jonathan Taylor. My fantasy team could use it.
Hey, how you liking him, huh?
Yeah.
There you go.
Not.
But yeah, you got to put the Colts over the Titans right now. But I think the Titans will bounce back as the Titans Ravens game is going to be the biggest of the week, in my opinion, in terms of those two teams' seasons. Because if Baltimore loses, they can easily slip into a slump. And same thing for Tennessee, because they lose to Baltimore. They got Indianapolis the next week, the team that sent them into this downward spiral. So that's going to be big. But yeah, I would say Indianapolis is ahead of Tennessee right now. But don't count out the Titans and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that division will go down to the wire, and presumably whatever team doesn't get, the division win is probably going to get in, I would say. Take one of the wild cards or, the new seed they're adding in. So we'll finish up this week with week 10 at least, and then we'll end on a Patriots just look ahead. We'll do biggest winners, losers. We do this every week. We pick one winner, one loser. It can be a team, it can be a player. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to try to avoid the obvious ones like Hopkins. I don't want to pick him as like the winner because it's kind of like whatever. But I'm gonna go with, for my winner. We'll start winners. We'll go losers after. I'm gonna go with Big Ben. I think we mentioned it when we were talking about MVPs. He's kind of flying under the radar. Like I feel like he does every year. It's like people are always like, well, when's Big Ben gonna have that year where he's obviously hurt last year, but when's he gonna have that year where he shows his age and kind of falls off? And similar to Tom Brady, it just isn't happening. He threw for 330 plus 4 touchdowns. I mean, it's a classic Big Ben game. Steelers 9-0 now.
He probably threw like 95 times.
Yeah, 46 times. Closing on 50 every single game. The Steelers are definitely the team to beat in the AFC, and they're probably the most feared team, aside from maybe the Chiefs, to play. And with that offense, I mean, it just, I don't know, man. That's a scary team to go into the playoffs with. There's the amount of weapons they have mixed with their top defense. That's a recipe for a Super Bowl team. And I got to give props to Big Ben because even coming off of his Dallas game where he played great, he had that knee injury that he went down with mid-game, still continued to play. Got put on the COVID list earlier this week, thinking maybe he had come in contact. Gets only practices once this entire week, comes back and throws for almost 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, that's insane, and it adds to the Steelers, their resume this year, which is looking really impressive.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there. I think he is definitely flying under the radar out there in Pittsburgh. If I gotta pick a winner, it's kind of tough. I'm gonna go with the Giants, to be honest.
Stole mine.
No, you're not, because I just picked them. The Giants, I feel like they've got real potential to win that division, which is sad to say because they're sitting at 3-7. But I think they've been playing like the best team in that. Yeah, they came close to bringing down Brady and the Bucks a couple of weeks ago, and I think they play way above their talent level. They've got some good young pieces. They've got some good players. Their defense really isn't half bad, and their offense, I think, considering how bad their offensive line is, they've been really performing pretty well against some good teams. They got a huge win over the Eagles. They look way better coached. They look way more organized. They have another game against them, I think, later in the season, and I fully expect them to win. And if they can string together a couple of division wins towards the end of the season, they could end up finishing maybe 7-9 or something. Hopefully, win that division. I really don't want to see a team worse than 7-9 winning that division. That'd be terrible. But I think Daniel Jones has looked good. Wayne Gallman's been doing pretty well, especially for my fantasy team. He's been a great pickup for me. And yeah, I just like what they have going for them. I never thought I'd say I like the Giants, but I really like what they have going. I think they should be favorites to win the division now with how they've been playing recently.
Yeah, I just want to kind of piggyback off of that before I go into it. The Giants and Eagles have really similar schedules. I think next week they both have games they can either win or lose. I think Philly plays Cleveland. Yeah, they play Cleveland, and the Giants play Cincinnati. And those are two games that could go either way. And then I think they both have losses coming up in the week after that, as Philadelphia plays Green Bay and the Giants play the Seahawks. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that division plays out. Daniel Jones looks to be good. The offense is seeming to be clicking a little more. But I feel like my winners that I wanted to pick I kind of touched upon earlier in the episode, but I'm going to put the Cardinals and the Rams in one little category here because of the fact that they both got wins over legit teams. I mean, the Rams got a freaking win over the Seahawks, and they both just lucked out that the Seahawks happened to lose to the Rams, obviously, which you could say put the Rams over the Cardinals because they got the win over the Seahawks, and they're technically in first place because of the tiebreaker. So, yeah, screw it. I'll say the Rams are my winner this week. That win's got to feel really good for them. They're in control of that division as of right now until Thursday night. But, yeah, we're going to see how that week goes. I think LA is here, and this was their game to prove it.
All right, we can hop over to losers now. There's definitely some teams to pick from. I mean, I feel like there are a couple obvious ones. I'm going to go ahead and just pick one that I think we're all thinking of. I'm going to go with the Ravens. I mean, this was one of those games where it was like, all right, you're a little bit off track. This is a team. The Patriots team are kind of in a bit of a spiral. They just barely beat the winless Jets. And this was like a game to get back on track. It was kind of like whenever the Patriots used to face the Jets, if they had lost 2 in a row or lost, 2 out of the last 3, it was like, all right, get to beat the Jets, start going. And the Ravens just looked bad. And Lamar, the amount of question marks surrounding Lamar, I think there's even more after this game. He's always been like, so you've always questioned his passing ability. And it hasn't looked good this year. And he hasn't really moved a lot. I mean, he didn't run a lot on us. There's a couple of scrambles he had, but mix that with their lack of run game from the running backs. I think they ran for like 60 yards combined. Yeah. And when you have pretty much a running back at quarterback, then you got 2 other guys, Dobbins and Ingram, who both should be able to, get some
yards. Edwards isn't bad either.
Yeah, Gus Edwards too. I mean, those are 4 guys right there that, they're combining for 60 yards a game. When you don't have the greatest receivers, it's, I don't know. I think they're in a world of trouble. I mean, I think they can still squeak into the playoffs. I don't think but that division is now out of hand, really. And now they're going to be fighting for the wild cards.
They're not catching Pittsburgh at all.
No way. And I mean, if they would have won this, this game, I mean, they only got 2 losses then. And then you play Pittsburgh later on in the season. They're still, they can still catch them. I don't think the Pittsburgh's going to go undefeated, but now you're down 3 games. They've got the tiebreaker on you. It's slipping now, and I think they're in a lot of trouble. They're one of the teams, I think, one of the playoff teams, kind of similar to the Seahawks, that they're really hitting the panic button. To what Anthony said.
Mm-hmm. I had a couple I was thinking of taking. This one might actually seem kind of weird. I was going to go with the Titans, but I decided to go with the Packers, who actually...
Son of a bitch, you did it again.
You guys were both thinking the Packers? Wow.
Sorry, yeah. Anthony around the... Great minds think alike.
They do.
They beat the Jaguars 24-20, but I mean, Devontae Adams exited the game with an injury, and the fact that you beat who many people consider like the second to worst or worst team in the league. This is a team that's 1-9, competing for the top pick in the draft this upcoming spring. You beat them by 4 points, and they're starting their backup quarterback. They performed terribly all season, and you've shown that without Devontae Adams, your offense is kind of like really has no gears. Aaron Jones hasn't been himself since he's gotten back from injury. You can't rely on guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the guy who has either 5 receptions for 180 yards and a touchdown, or he gets 2 targets and no catches.
Yeah,
they're not very reliable, and especially with their defense, that's proven to be very porous outside of guys like Jair Alexander. They got Kenny Clark there too, but guys outside of there, you really don't have a lot to work with. So the Packers, I think, they're 7-2, but it's like last year they were 13-3, but they were like one of the worst 13-3 teams in recent memory because they got pieced by the Niners. They preyed on weak teams during the regular season, and when push comes to shove, and people are doubling up Devontae Adams in the playoffs, Aaron Rodgers can't get it done.
Yep.
Simple enough. So,
Yep.
Sorry, Anthony, I took your
No, I was just looking over again. It's really going to shake up the NFC playoff picture because you can't rely on the defense at all. And if Rodgers is starting to struggle with no help, really time to hit the panic button again. I think that's what we should name this episode, Time to Hit the Panic Button.
Before you go, Anthony, if you don't mind me jumping in, it's weird that they're still, I think, leading for the 1 seed in the NFC. But they're not better, I think, than some of the teams below them.
I think the Saints are in first place right now in the NFC.
Okay,
I think they have the first seed, and they're actually my loser this week. I mean, yeah, they beat the Niners pretty easily, but they lost Drew Brees in the process, it's not like Teddy Bridgewater coming in last year. You got Jameis Winston, who I think is the biggest question mark in the league right now going into this next.
My boy Jaboo.
Yeah, this next week. Clip that.
Mm-hmm.
But you think about it in the long run, if the Saints start to drop games, the Bucs could catch up. Even though New Orleans beat Tampa Bay twice in the regular season. I mean, it was last week or 2 weeks ago, 38-3. It was 38-3, right? Yeah, that crazy ass Sunday night game, which I'm very upset about, by the way. That's going to be in my closing thoughts later from a week or two ago. But yeah, it's just that's tough for the Saints because even though they beat Tampa Bay twice, Tampa Bay could still win the division just because they're healthy right now. Brady doesn't look to be slowing down anytime soon. And if Tampa Bay doesn't end up winning that division with Breeze going down, then that's just tough. I'm sorry, Tampa Bay. Yeah, so New Orleans is my loser this week. Yeah, the NFC playoff pictures are really shaking up right now. I don't know. It's going to be crazy. I'm very excited to watch it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Filling that dead air. Oh, I can't hear you, Jordan. If you're saying
I can't hear you, Jordan.
I knew I was gonna do that, dude. I coughed and I muted myself. I was like, I better unmute myself or I'm gonna forget. All right. So what I was saying is we'll move on from week 10 week 10. Move into preview week 11. We'll focus in on the Patriots. Presumably their path to victory to the playoffs. There's I believe there's 5 teams that are now not leading their division but are 6-3 that are ahead of us, you should say. The Raiders, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Titans. 2 of the games next week, the Chiefs and the Raiders, and the Ravens and the Titans, are both going to be games to watch for the Patriots. Overall, though, the Patriots need 3 of the teams to finish at give or take 10-6, which gives us a loss buffer. But theoretically, we kind of need to win out, honestly, to really have a solid chance. Give me your odds for the Patriots to make the playoffs right now. Go.
Oof.
On the spot. I didn't really tell you about this before.
I'm gonna say
like a percent.
What did you say?
Like a percent.
I'm gonna be optimistic. I'm gonna be the optimistic Patriots fan. I'm gonna put it at 60.
Wow. Okay.
I'm gonna put it at 60. I think even if they lose one more game and they happen to finish at 10-6, I think some of these other teams might actually fall out of the playoff picture. And they've talked about if there's more COVID games that get postponed, expanding the playoff field 1 or 2 more teams. And if that happens, there's no reason for the Patriots not to make it. So I'm going to be biased, even though we're usually unbiased. I'm going to be biased and put it at 60%.
If we're being optimistic, yes, 60%. But if we're being realistic, I say there's a 50-50 shot they get in. Just because of the fact, I don't think I think I'm really optimistic here. I think we can win out, except for Arizona. I feel like if there's one game we're gonna drop, it's gonna be to Arizona, and that puts us at what 10-6, I believe, on the season. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of what teams do what, just because of how tight it is right now. I don't know what Miami's schedule looks like the rest of the year. I don't know what Baltimore looks like the rest of the year, except for Tennessee next week. But it's gonna be really close to call, especially like Pat said with the COVID games, which I don't. As of right now, there really hasn't been any like postponements or cancellations of games since like week 4 or some shit like that. But yeah, it's gonna be fun to see play out. I'm really excited for the playoffs this year. If you guys couldn't tell.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna be a little bit more pessimistic, which I'm usually more optimistic, but I think I gotta give us slightly under 50. I'm gonna give us like 40 to 45% chance to make it in. Just looking at some of the schedules for the teams that we mentioned, I don't know. It's tough to find 3 of these teams losing, going 3-6 in their last, or no, not 3-6. How many games are left? 6 games.
6 games, yeah.
So they'd have to go, what, 3-4?
Are
No,
they
3-3.
No. What are we? 4-5 right now?
So we're 4-5. They're 6-3. So they'd have to go.
So we have
They'd have to
7
finish
more
it,
games left.
and they'd have to and they have to go 10-6. It's just I'm like mixing it. I'm not good at math, so but just generally the idea is it's hard to find losses for 3 of these teams. To end up getting down 10-6. It's just really they'd
Right.
have. There's a couple of games where they'd have to really lose, and like you wouldn't expect it to happen. Mix
Yeah.
that with like us having to play the Bills again, and us having to play, like Anthony said, the Cardinals. You have the Rams who just beat the Seahawks. I mean, they're
Forgot
not a
about
joke
them.
either.
Damn,
And
forgot
then
about that. And
yeah,
Miami looks good right now too. So
exactly. I mean, we like to say, well, our schedule is not that bad. Yeah, you don't face like the Steelers or the Chiefs anymore, but you don't. You definitely have like 4 or 5 games that you could certainly lose. I'd say every game except maybe the Chargers and the Jets is up in the air. Even the Texans game this week, their record's not great, but I mean their team is good. Their offense is good, and I don't know. I think this next week we'll lay it out a little bit better with the Patriots hopefully grabbing a win, getting back to 500, and then we'll see where if the Raiders take the L to the Chiefs and then Ravens Titans, one of the teams loses. It'll shape it a little bit more. So we'll have to see. But we've never experienced a Patriots season like this before, so it's interesting. But
Yeah.
it's going to come down to the wire.
Especially knowing that you could have won some games earlier in the season.
Exactly.
But, you got to take it week by week.
Yep.
mm-hmm.
So we'll go into final thoughts. Anthony already mentioned kind of what he was going to talk about. I think
Yeah.
me and Pat are a little bit in agreement. We'll just jump into ours, and then Anthony will hand it off to you to end it. Celtics are feels like the middle of the summer right now with all the trade talks that are going on. But we're recording this 24 hours before the draft. When you upload this, it'll probably be after the draft or maybe during
Most
it. I don't
likely.
know.
Yeah.
But a lot of talk with Gordon Hayward and whether the Celtics are going to move up in the draft or just use their picks. Pat, what do you think? You think Hayward is a Celtic? I'll ask both of you guys this. So, is Hayward a Celtic? First question, and then second question: do you think we move up in the draft at all?
I think Hayward, for his own good, shouldn't be a Celtic. I think if he wants another payday, he's not going to get it playing fourth, fifth guy for this team. It's unfortunate how it happened. It's unfortunate he got injured and then fell out of the rotation. But freak things like that happen. Tatum and Brown emerged and just superseded him. And, I think he could really succeed in another place, but this just isn't the place for him. And if we use all 3 picks tomorrow, I am probably going to find out where Danny Ainge lives and, I don't know, spray something mad on his house because that can't happen. And he's even come out and said it can't happen. We've been waiting for so long. Future. Now it's 2020, and it's time to reap the benefits of all these picks that you've been acquiring. What's that, Anthony?
I said the future is now.
Right, exactly.
It's gotta happen at some point.
It's time to actually make a move, do something serious. They call him Trader Danny, but what trades has he really made outside of a couple select few over the past 7 years? So got to put his money where his mouth is. Got to make a move like some of these other teams are making, especially with what Milwaukee did the other day. We can't just afford to sit around here and prepare to be bounced again in the second or third round. It just can't happen. So you better make a move. Got to do something. You can't be complacent like this again.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like every year, every other team in the East takes a step forward as the Celtics kind of just sit back, kind of not really getting any better. And I'm really sick of it. If we can go ahead and grab James Harden, I think that'd be absolutely insane. But the looks of it right now, he's looking at Brooklyn. But I would love to see how that plays out in that power struggle.
Mhm.
Just to see the Nets, just everyone hyping them up almost like they did Tampa Bay this year, and then just absolutely fall in front of our eyes. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, Anthony, I'll let you go into your NFL bit after this, but I think maybe a hot take. I think Harden actually ends up staying with the Rockets this season, and I think that the swap between John Wall and Russ will actually happen, and it'll kind of give Harden a little bit of more motivation to stay, and then run it with Wall instead of Westbrook. I think that relationship is, as friends, is probably still good, but on the court, I mean, people knew their games were going to clash. They're both really ball dominant. I mean, John Wall is to an extent too, but maybe just a fresh face in Houston. And I cannot see the Rockets trading him to the Nets. I mean, do they realize what they'll do to give another top 5 player on that team? And they've already said that they won't entertain anything that if it isn't Kyrie or KD coming back the other way, which we probably know isn't going to happen for the Nets. But yeah, I agree with Pat and Anthony. You can't be complacent. That was a good way to sum it up. I'd like to get somewhere in the 5, 6, 7 range, get one of the top guys. But if we stick at 14, I think RJ Hampton and Cole Anthony are 2 guys I would look at, both guards. But if Brad Wanamaker's on his way out, which we can all hope and pray will actually happen, we need a backup point guard. We need a scorer off the bench. If you can add a little bit like that, at least it's not a total wash of an offseason. But yeah, I agree. Moves got to be made. If we record next week and we have 3 new European players on our team, or anyone for that matter, but I don't want to see no names from the some French league or
Lithuania.
It's just like, bro, we just want to see give us a stud prospect. I don't care where he's from. I just mean just stud prospect, and not give us 3 more, someone from a low D1 school or someone just give us a prospect that we can look at and pair with Tatum and Brown, and hopefully, that'll be the trio of the future.
Yeah, we can only hope and pray at this point. But I'm kind of pissed off at the fact that Tampa Bay and New Orleans the other week wasn't a good game. I mean, I was up anyway. It was one of those restless nights, but I would have liked to have seen a really good game. I've been talking about this for a few weeks now in these primetime games. You want to see the best teams in the best matchup come down to the wire. You want to see that entertaining game, because on Sunday Night Football, if it's an absolute blowout, you're shutting the TV off. Ratings are going to go down. And I'm not saying that's the TV station's fault, because I don't think anybody predicted that the result of the New Orleans and Tampa Bay game. But I'm kind of upset at that. And Jordan Burroughs is still the king. He wrestled, I think, Zahid Valencia on Flow the other night. Zahid Burroughs did it again, pretty much. I don't know how many of you guys listening right now are wrestling guys, but Zahid was up 4-0 on Burroughs, and then Burroughs just did it. He did it again. He does some crazy ass shit that nobody expects him to do. I mean, they kind of expect him to do it, but it's like, oh, is he going to do it again? Is he going to do it again? Yeah. Because he just buries himself in this hole. He lets his opponent. I think the coolest thing about him is he lets his opponent gas out. His opponent will do all his crazy shit in the first period, and then when Burroughs is just getting warmed up and his opponent is absolutely fucking exhausted, that's when Burroughs turns it on and he's just double-legging him into another dimension.
Is he the top guy right now? And was it college?
In the country, yeah. I think he's the best in the world. So I think people will agree that Jordan Burroughs is the best in the world. And he's going to stay that way for a little while now. So, USA. Yeah. So.
All right, that wraps up our final thoughts, unless anyone's got anything else to add. But I think we are all in agreement that Celtics need to make some moves, and the Patriots need to win. And that's about it. All right, so this is episode 11.
11.
11. All right. 11. We'll be back with you next week. We'll try to keep it consistent as we move into the new NBA season and the heart of the NFL season. And yeah, we'll keep getting these episodes out to you guys. Peace.
Peace.